Welcome to Soulfire Wisdom with Kate Olson. As an evolving spirit and change adventure navigator, it is Kate's mission to empower and guide you on your path and inspire your truest passions. She will encourage you to share your gifts, speak your truth, and ignite your inner wisdom and purpose. She hopes to do so with a little humor and grace, and her own soulfire passion. Kate talks with amazing guests who have embraced the pursuit and are fanning the flames of their own passion, purpose, and soulfire wisdom. Now here's your host, Kate.
Hi, welcome to Soulfire Wisdom and the second broadcast of our book launch, which is the Joy Resilience Connection, 3 days to start a joyfulness practice that fuels resilience. And this episode is how art, writing, and journaling can help you be more joyful and more resilient. So my guest for this episode is Angie Louthan. And Angie is a life coach, life transformation coach, and an intuitive artist, as well as a community builder and visionary for a kinder world. And that is actually how I met Angie at a networking event, but I immediately recognized that she was the lady who did the Kind Fest back a few years ago now. And so that interested me in getting to know her a little bit better. And since then, I've found that she is multi-talented. So I'm excited to have her here today and to introduce her right now. Hi, Angie.
Hi, Kate. I am great. Excited to be here.
So, Angie, actually, I asked her to contribute some of her art drawings for the journal that goes along with my book. The journal is called Simple Soul Thoughts, Collecting Moments of Joy. And it's actually a tool to help in building the joyful resilience mindset. And I thought it needed a little bit of, sprucing up, decorating. So I asked some artists that I know, Angie being one of them, to share some of their drawings. So there are 3 of Angie's drawings in the Joyful Resilience book.
Yeah. Can't wait to see that and have it in my hands.
So I know that you have had an interest in writing and journaling as well as art, and that you use that a lot in both your coaching and your personal life.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about how you've used it in both of those areas?
Yeah. Well, journaling I've been doing off and on since I can remember, since elementary school. So there was something about kind of having a place to share my honest feelings and thoughts and things that were happening throughout the day. Back then, I kind of just used it as a diary of like, here's kind of what happened in the day, and felt like it was a safe place to share my thoughts without feeling judged by anybody. So that kind of became, I guess, just a tool that I used ever since I was in elementary. And like I said, there was years where maybe I didn't use it, and then years I'd really come back and use it a lot. but I feel like I've always been journaling off and on since elementary school age. And I started learning about different ways to use my journal instead of just kind of recounting the day and kind of dropping, what happened and how I was feeling. It was like, how could I use this as a tool to help me work through things a little bit more? And before I even knew what coaching was, I started using it as a place to kind of question sort of my reality or the thoughts that I was thinking. So actually, Byron Katie, Loving What Is a book that I read, probably 8 to 10 years ago. And I really liked her inquiry method. There was kind of some questions that she used. And so I started using my journal space as a way to sort of, maybe share what I was struggling with, and then use this inquiry process of like, how do I know that thought or belief is true, and how does it make me feel? And, what could I think differently to make me feel differently? And just kind of going through this whole process. So I started to use it as a way to coach myself and kind of transform my thinking about situations and create some more inner peace. And it was really, really helpful. And then I also, it was based on a book that I read, years ago. I can't even remember now. It was like 15 to 18 years ago. And I remember reading this book where this person was sort of in conversation with kind of their higher self through their journal. So I started using my journal in that way as well. It's like, what if I could write to a part of myself that actually knows the truth, or that could give me some guidance? And so then I would write to this sort of higher, wiser self, and then I would let that self write back to me. And so it became this sort of dialogue that was happening in my journal. So those are a couple of ways that I started using my journal space. And then when I actually did get trained in coaching, I started doing more self-coaching and kind of asking myself the questions that I wish that somebody would ask me, and helping me kind of get through things. So that's one of the ways that I've used my journal space. I guess all of the ways that I've used it.
Way back when, when I first started writing, I don't think they even called things journals. People had diaries.
Yes, right.
And that whole idea of Dear Diary never appealed to me.
Yeah.
But, and so I didn't think of it in the way I think of journaling now.
Yeah.
But I know that I did write, like I would write letters or poems or things like that were kind of an outlet for, what I was trying to resolve emotionally.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, because that is how I used it when I was younger. It was like, Dear Diary, here's what happened today, And I realized that was just venting. It wasn't really doing anything for me. I mean, I guess it was a good place to feel heard, I guess, to myself. But yeah, to really work through things or express things in a creative form. That's a totally different experience with a journal, for sure.
And now, if I look back at, I don't have a lot of stuff, but I have a few things that I saved from, back like high school, college, and like I can look at them and see what my emotional state of mind was from what I wrote, even though I wasn't saying, this is the way I feel and this happened today. I can get a kind of overall temperature of, where I was at as far as, my understanding of, who I was and what was going on in my world.
And the great thing about that, because I've also gone back and looked back at old writing or journaling that I've done, is it's a good reminder to myself and maybe to you as well that, we're never really in that place forever. Because sometimes when we're in maybe even a difficult place in our lives, it feels like it's never going to go away. And I can see that throughout my lifetime, I've had struggles and I've gone through hard times, and yet I always come out of it at some point. So nothing is permanent, and things are always changing and moving and evolving and growing. And so it is kind of evidence and stuff that.
Yes. And also, to me, it was helpful to go back and look at that stuff because, at that age, it does seem like everything's going to last forever.
Yeah.
And that whatever is going on is much more monumental than it turns out to be in the whole, scope of life. And so it helps me when I am talking to clients that are, coming from that space to be able to relate to it a little bit better.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I love that. Yeah. And you said too that you've used it to write poetry and to write letters and things like that. And I haven't written too much poetry, although I have a few times, and it has been a fun, creative outlet to do that. But I have written letters, like I've written unsent letters to people where I just needed to sort of express something, but I know that saying it to their face probably isn't the healthiest, or maybe just I wasn't ready for that. And so being able to write a letter has been a really great process for getting through some difficult times in my life. And even writing letters to myself, I know this is something that was practiced. Actually, I think the very first time I did this, I climbed a mountain my senior year. It was like a week-long hiking trip with women. And when we got to the very top of the mountain, we were supposed to write a letter to ourselves, and that letter got sent back to us months later. And that was the first time that I had done something like that. And since then, I've done that a few more times, where I wrote a letter to myself and it came back to me a few months later. But even writing a letter to myself in my journal sometimes feels really sort of cathartic to get some things off, or to do some future self-writing of like, a year from now, what would I want to say to myself, and looking back. And so there's lots of creative, fun ways to write and journal.
And it is also, I use it with clients sometimes. I have them, especially if there's a situation where they need to go through the forgiveness process. But if they actually confronted the person with what they want to say, it might not turn out the way they would like it to.
Exactly.
And you don't have to actually go through that process with the person to be able to let go of it for yourself.
Right.
So if you go through it by writing the letter and saying what you need to say, but you never give it to that other person, you can actually, imagine them reacting the way that you would like to have them react.
I love that.
By doing that, it's easier for you to let go of those, feelings that you might have built up. And once you do, then you don't need to feel them anymore.
Yes.
And so even though they haven't done what you would have liked them to do, you've done what you needed to do.
Yeah. And our brains are these powerful machines or tools in our bodies that, sometimes all it takes is imagining that we did that and imagining what they would say back to create a different emotion inside of ourselves. And I think that is part of creating or being resilient.
Because also sometimes it is, okay, you confront somebody and they they have no idea that this is coming.
Yep.
So they
Yep.
react.
Right. They defensive or
Yeah. And so
turn
they
it around
might,
on you.
yeah, they might not react in really the way that they would have liked to.
Yes. Right.
So
Yeah.
it's a way of, kind of like creating the movie script, the way you would like the movie to go.
Yeah. And really empowering, right? Because
Yes.
you get to sort of maintain your power in that type of situation.
And sometimes also, they are not capable at that moment of reacting the way they should.
Or having a conversation with you in the way that you would hope. Yeah, you may have the skills and tools to be able to have a compassionate conversation about something really difficult, but other people may not have those skills. And so then, yeah, you kind of have to let that go and find other ways to work through it. So yes, writing can be a really powerful tool for getting through difficult things.
So I know also that I don't always write down words when I'm journaling, and you don't have to. You just have to express yourself. Like back when I was talking about when I didn't even know what journaling was, I used to draw pictures, like on my notebooks and just about any piece of paper was in front of me. And if I looked at those, they were also kind of an expression of what was going on with me emotionally.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, so actually the art that's in the workbook, I just have called them animals and tangles. I actually have a few on my wall back here. But those were a result of me just working through some things that I couldn't always put words to. And also, as I was working through some stuff, I was meditating a lot at that point, and a lot of times would get these images of animals, and in these meditations, these animals would be there to teach me something or to give me a message about, the circumstance that I was dealing with. And so oftentimes I'd come out of those meditations and I was like, I want to draw this animal that showed up for me. Or perhaps it's an animal that kept on showing up for me in the real world that I thought, well, maybe there's a lesson to be learned, or what if this animal had something to teach me, what would it be? So I started to I liked drawing mandalas, and I just loved starting with something simple in the middle and just creating random designs. I just called it intuitive art because I didn't have a plan. I didn't know how it was going to finish. It was just like, how can I stay present with myself and invite myself to draw the next thing that interested me or brought me joy or brought me some sort of pleasure. And so that was my intuitive drawing. And then that one time turned into a peacock. I thought, what if I could draw a peacock with like kind of a mandala, feathers in the background? And then after that, I was like, this is, kind of fun. I wonder if I could just draw sort of these Zentangle intuitive drawings inside of an animal that maybe isn't in the shape of a mandala. So I think the wolf was the very first one that I did. And it became a meditative practice because they normally take 6 to 8 hours to do. I wouldn't sit there for the straight 6 to 8 hours at once, but I would work on them for maybe 2 hours at a time, an hour and a half to 2 hours at a time. And coming back to that animal was a meditation of, one, what does this animal have to teach me about my life or about the circumstance that I'm in right now? But also, how can I use this as a practice of staying really present and just not having really much of a plan and just asking myself, what is the next thing? What is the next step to take right now? And letting go of the attachment of what it was going to be at the end. And So that is one way that drawing and art has served me. I've since made, I think now 11 or 12 of those sort of Zentangle drawings. And Zentangle is typically done within a box, and Zen, because it creates inner peace, and Tangle is just some kind of repetitive line of some sort. So within these animals, you'll see that I've created some repetitive lines, but there's also pictures and sometimes little hidden words in those pictures. And but that is one of the ways that I used art to kind of help me get through things that I, like you said, don't always have words for, didn't know how to journal about, or maybe it was just too heavy and it was too hard to process, and it wasn't always heavy stuff too. It was like maybe something really exciting that I was going through, or feeling really full of hope and joy, and I wanted to express that in a drawing. So those drawings kind of took place of writing and journaling for me for a long while. And I still did journaling and writing in between then, but it was a different way of working through stuff and sort of meditating and being present.
Well, I know your approach to art is similar to the way I like to tell people to approach their journaling. And not having, like a set expectation, not, as you've said before, being so set on, coloring within the lines.
And letting it get messy and be imperfect.
Yeah, because to really connect with your thoughts, you have to just really let that stream of consciousness develop without saying, I have to think about this right now. With this solution.
Yeah. I mean, and how our brain works. And so when we're telling the brain, like, I have to sit down and I have to journal and it has to be this end product, and there's all this like pressure you start to put on yourself, and then suddenly nothing that comes out is really honest or genuine or really maybe a whole lot of truth. I mean, it could be some truth, but it is not, you're not really tapping into that creative process where journaling and writing and art should be a way to sort of tap into your creative part of your brain, which if you give yourself permission to let go of attachment to
creative part of your mind is the problem solving part.
Exactly. Yeah. And we try to solve the problems from that like really logical, and so it is a really great opportunity and practice to sort of unlock that different part of your brain that can sometimes be innovative and come up with different solutions that you weren't even thinking about had you not given yourself the opportunity to creatively write or journal or do art. So
it's for kind of like you throw the question out there, and then you have to just kind of let your subconscious work with it and not say, we have to do it this way. We have to write now. And what's the answer?
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you said you throw the question out there, because that is one thing. If I am facilitating a class where we're doing art, I do ask them to come in with an intention of like, how do you want to use this art process? Is there something at work that you're trying to work through, or in relationships or whatever? How do you want to, like, what is the lens that you want to look at this art process through? Because then our brain can start kind of doing what it needs to do in the background, like you said, unconsciously. But if we don't go with an intention, it's always fine. Something will turn out no matter what, and you'll get something
will happen. We don't know.
Something will happen. But it is nice to kind of go in with a loose intention or idea of like, is there something that I'm trying to work out or figure out in my brain? And can I come in with like the intention of, I would love some more insight around this particular issue and just then let it be that. Just as simple
but
as that.
if you try to control it, you're really narrowing the the options to pretty much what you already are thinking about or focusing on.
Yes.
And that's usually not what we want when we're trying to, find the best solution or come up with other solutions for something.
Yeah, exactly. One of my favorite practices to invite people into, which any of your viewers can do that as well, is if you want kind of an intuitive art practice to start with, maybe you don't consider yourself an artist or you don't even know what you would do first. One of the first and most simple things I like to invite people into is a scribble Zentangle. So I ask them to first create a big scribble on their paper that kind of takes up the paper space. And it's amazing how just that invitation can already make people panic. They're like, but what is the scribble supposed to look like? And how many scribbles can it be? And, there's all these questions. And I'm like, could you give yourself permission to just not have any right or wrong way of doing this and just go into it with this sort of playful attitude and trust that whatever comes out of it is good enough and it is what it is for today. And so once they create this scribble, then I invite them to start creating some Zentangles, which is just a repetitive pattern within the bubbles of the scribble. And it becomes a really informative practice because I like to say, like, how you do anything is how you do everything. And so when and where you tend to struggle or pause or question yourself can sometimes be a mirror for the places that you might be pausing or stopping or questioning yourself at work or in relationships or whatever. So it's a really simple and easy kind of mirroring intuitive practice for your life, and a great place to start if somebody's like, I don't know what kind of art to create and how to express myself and how to use this as a tool. So that's one of the simplest ones that I like to invite people into.
Yeah, sounds good. I watched one of your videos that you had on YouTube where you were painting, and I actually didn't have the sound on because I was watching it while I had another
music or something on.
Zoom information thing on.
Yeah.
And so it was really interesting to me how I saw this thing that didn't look like anything but a bunch of different colors. Yeah. And then, I don't know how long it took you because you had it speeded up.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it started forming into something.
Yeah. That was a really fun practice. That took me about 8 hours to do that painting.
Okay.
Yeah, and I did it over the course of Saturday and Sunday. But it was one of those practices again where I was like, I'm going to just go in to play and explore and experiment and try some different things out, and we'll see what happens. And I had no idea that what would come out was this sort of botanical painting towards the end. And it was really a fun practice for me. And, one of the other things is I'd always done it on smaller canvases, and a lot of the work that I invite people to do is on smaller canvases. But I thought, what would happen if I actually gave myself more room to play? And so I gave myself this really large, big canvas. I can't remember what the size was. But again, it was sort of this great mirror opportunity of like, where am I kind of forcing myself to play in these like small perimeters, and what if I could create or give myself more space to play, and what would happen, and trusting that, as I continue to explore and play and experiment, that something will happen out of it, and whether it's something that I want to put on my wall or not, I guess that's not always the point. The point is like, can I stay present and create joy for myself in that process and trust that whatever happens in the end is okay, because I got what I needed in the process along the journey of painting, which is just to play and experiment and have fun.
Yes. So, yeah, that is kind of how the journal works too for people in
Excited.
using it as a tool. It doesn't really, matter what they write day to day.
Mm.
It's the process that they're going through.
Mm. I'm excited I just got the digital form yesterday, so I'm excited to start using it.
And so the journal has, in addition to the art, it has some poems and quotes related to joy and resilience, and then it has 182 writing prompts.
Awesome. I
And
love
the
good writing
prompts, well, they're to, something to grab onto, to think.
Yeah, exactly.
But if it doesn't resonate, the question I always ask myself is, okay, I don't want to think about that. What would I rather think about?
Oh, yeah.
So,
I love it. So yeah, it sounds like a really intuitive, created book and intuitive process for other people to go through.
yes.
I'm excited.
So thank you for being here today and talking about this. I think writing, art, and creativity in general are important parts of creating the joyful resilience mindset that I'm trying to encourage. So
I love that. Yes, thanks for inviting me, and I'm always happy to talk about these topics. So
there is a gift with each one of these broadcasts, and Angie is offering a gift, and it's a 21-day challenge.
Embodied pleasure.
Yeah, embodied pleasure challenge. Can you just give them a quick sentence about what it's about?
Yeah. So I know for me, part of just the way that I live my life is really finding ways to create and look for pleasure throughout my day. And I think that's part of staying resilient in hard times. Even in some of the toughest times that I've ever gone through, the thing that got me through it was finding ways to create and or look for pleasure in just the small moments of my day. So this 21 days of embodied pleasure is kind of a slow building practice to help people to start to look for and create pleasure throughout their day that I think helps to create resilience in getting through what we're all going through, a hard time.
Definitely. That is one of the main concepts I'm trying to get across in my book. So
that's awesome. Yes. Yay. Well,
it's been very well.
Perfect. That's awesome.
So just one more thing before we go. If people want to connect with you, what's the best way?
Yeah, best way right now, I'm on Instagram, Angie Louthan and then that's my website, angielouthan.com, but I'm on Instagram as Angie Louthan, and you can even just email me at angie@angielouthan.com. So those are probably the best ways for right now. And I've got a community that I'm building on Mighty Networks, and I've got empowerment circles that I hold every month for people who like to write and journal.
Great. So if you want to get the book, it's on special now, the book and the journal, for it's a 99-cent special, and that's through tomorrow, the 12th. And you can get that by going to joyfulkate.com, and it's only available through Amazon right now. The other sites will upload on the 13th, and the other paperback will be available then too. So for the gifts, you go to soulfireradio.com/gifts. And the gifts are the only thing you have to sign up for. You don't have to sign up for the broadcast. But to get the gifts, you do. And there's 14 of them all together, and they're pretty good. So I would sign up. And I will be back at 5:30 p.m. today for the next broadcast. That's Pacific time. And I will be interviewing and talking with Victor Purton. And Victor is the founder of the Center for Optimism. And we will be talking about practices that promote joy, optimism, and resilience. And Victor also wrote the foreword for my book. And he talked a lot about practices in the foreword. So we have a lot to talk about.
That's
so join
awesome.
us at 5:30. And thank you again, Angie.
Thank you. And congratulations to you on your book. I'm excited.
Thank you. All right. I'm going to say bye for now.
Thank you for listening to Soul Fire Wisdom with Kate Olson. We hope you enjoyed the show. If we made you laugh, brightened your day, or sparked a new thought, we have succeeded in our mission. Join us next time when we'll share more secrets and truths and all the magic of transformation that is the journey to Soul Fire Wisdom. Always remember, be fierce in the pursuit of what sets your soul on fire.